Look who's doing AI stuff today versus yesterday. Yesterday, it's a data scientist. I don't know if we need that many data scientists anymore. Like, look who's doing AI stuff today. It's app developers.
Welcome to Founded and Funded. I'm Goel, here today with Nikita Shamgunov, co-founder and CEO of Neon, a 2023 IA40 winner. Nikita is an engineer at heart with early stints at both Microsoft and Facebook. He previously co-founded SingleStore, which he grew to over $100 million in revenue. Neon is powering the next generation of AI applications with its fully managed serverless Postgres. And in this episode, Nikita gives his perspective on the database market, building a killer developer experience, and how both are speeding up the creation and adoption of intelligent applications. Congratulations to Neon for recently hitting GA. And if you're watching on YouTube, make sure to hit that subscribe button. With that, here's Nikita. Nikita, thank you so much for joining me. Why don't you share a bit about your background and what your vision is for Neon?
So I'm a second-time founder, and my core background is systems. So I started, after finishing my PhD in computer science, my first kind of real job, even though I was doing a lot of kind of moonlighting jobs while studying. But my first real job was at Microsoft, where I worked on the SQL Server engine. From there, I started a database company called SingleStore. It used to be called MemSQL. And I started CTO. So I wrote the first line of code. I had like the nice experience of building a startup from scratch, went through Y Combinator, lived in the office for like a year until like I got a place where we would just like wake up and code and then don't stop until you go to sleep. And then I took over as CEO. I took over as CEO in 2017. The company had like about 7 million in run rate, and I scaled it to a CEO. That's how you measure yourself as CEO, I guess. I scaled it to about 40 million, after which I joined Khosla Ventures as an investing partner. Walking in, I told, a famous venture capitalist, Vinod Khosla, that there is another database idea that I'm really itching to build, which I couldn't act on while at SingleStore, because you can only have one engine in a company. And as I was thinking about it, I already had the idea maze kind of through, because I had been thinking about it for like 3 years by then. And, it's like, why don't you just incubate it here at Khosla Ventures, which I did. It took off really quickly. And so now that the company, Neon, is 3 years old, it raised over $100 million, and we're currently running 700,000 databases under management.
That's awesome and super impressive. You've obviously worn a number of different hats. One of the things you said that caught my attention was, you had the idea for Neon for 3 years. When did you sort of feel now's the right time to go build it?
I think it's not the right. I think I'm late. That's what I think. I think this idea should have started when AWS introduced AWS Aurora, and it became clear that this is the right approach of building and running database systems in the cloud. Separation of storage and compute is, just such a good idea for the cloud in general. Doesn't matter what stateful system you're running. Once that became obvious, and I think it became obvious at like 2015, so I might be 7 years late. I was trying to convince some of my former colleagues at SQL Server to go and build it while I was still running SingleStore. And I was saying, like, look, every successful cloud service inside a cloud could be unbundled. And also every successful SaaS service deserves an open source alternative. So those are like the clear openings for building an AWS Aurora alternative, which I already knew was just such a juggernaut. Like, it was like ramping revenue really, really quickly. That allows you to first counter position against Aurora. That allows you to have a very clear messaging, right? Because like people already understand what that is. It's like that, but open source, or it's just like that, but multi-cloud. So I was sitting on that for a while, was not able to act on it. And also I thought somebody else would build it, and then no one did. And I see all this database attempts by building shared nothing systems, such as CockroachDB and Yugabytes and CytosDB, and none of them were that like gigantically successful, but Aurora was. And I was like, This is the right approach. Because I was thinking about this for a while, the map in my head was already planned out. The downside, of course, is timing is everything. And, as we are now we just got GA. Aurora had been on the market for a while and like 4+ billion in run rate and all those things. So I think the opening maybe is narrower, but our execution is very, very good because the plan was very well thought out.
Going back a little bit, technology leaders at companies have a number of different databases to choose from. You mentioned a couple: CockroachDB, Yugabyte, Aurora, Postgres, even single store. Where does Neon stand out?
So I think it's important to map the database market a little bit. It's roughly split in half for analytics and operational systems. The company that still reigns operational systems or OLTP is Oracle, but nobody is excited to start new projects in Oracle, right? If you take, somebody graduating college and they want to build a new system, a new app, they will never choose Oracle. But what do they choose? So it turns out, because of the commoditization pressure, right, they will choose one of the open source technologies, which is really either MySQL, Postgres, or Mongo. And people won't choose Yugabyte. People won't choose single store, which breaks my heart a bit. And people won't choose a long tail of what is called niche databases. Those niche databases will be successful though with the right execution because the market's so huge. That gives you the opportunity to find a subset of workloads that you are better than anybody else, and then keep growing because again, the market's gigantic. But fundamentally, in that very large database market, there are basically two major use cases. One is I want to run my analytics, so which is a data warehousing use case or big data analytics use case. And then I want to run my app, which is your operational use case. So those are major. In the operational side, it's clear that Postgres is becoming the dominant force. And it's also clear that workloads are shifting into the cloud. So now the question is, who's going to own Postgres in the cloud? And who's going to own the share of Postgres as a service? Right now, I think the king is Amazon. And so that's why we're not inventing a new database. We're actually saying we're Postgres. And we're going to be on the trend lines of Postgres becoming the most important operational database on the planet. All the trend lines are there. And so we want to be on the right side of history. The question is, how do you become the default Postgres offering? And that's the question that we ask ourselves every day. And the answer in that is differentiation. Like what differentiation that you bring to this world. And what we think that differentiation is the cycle speed. And the cycle speed for who? Right, for developers. So operational databases, they exist in the service of their users, and their users are developers.
That makes a lot of sense. And you even touched on this, kind of like a consumerization of developer experience. Maybe we could kind of start there. I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on how do you build that 10x better developer experience?
So when we think about our ICP today, it's definitely a team of developers that don't have enough ops skills to start standing up their own infrastructure. And that small team wants to deploy daily, wants to optimize them for the cycle speed, and just overall moving extremely fast. We think over time, every team is going to be like this. What you want to do is you want to zoom out first and see what is the set of tools developers use today. And some of them have complete permanence. They've become standard. And something like GitHub, I think, has a ton of permanence. And GitHub is not going anywhere. And every day, GitHub is entrenching itself more and more in the developers' minds. And then which ones feels like minutia? You're writing boilerplate code or you're doing DevOps things that you don't want to do. And I think like standing up VMs, running node servers in those VMs, like I think that will just go away. That is minutia that people don't want to deal with. Then you keep zooming in, and in there you will see what do developers do every day when they build a feature? And that comes down to the developer workflow. And in that developer workflow, people create a branch in Git, sync, create their developer environment, send a pull request. So inside that developer workflow, modern tools, they plug in there very, very well. If you take, something like Vercel, it allows you to generate previews. So every pull request will have a Vercel preview. It's like a copy of your web app, but created for just this pull request before you pushed it into production. Guess what doesn't fit that workflow? Well, the database. So the database is the centralized piece. And you either give access to all your previews and all your developers to that centralized piece, but you run this thing in production. Whoa, this is scary, right? What if some developer writes a query that destroys the data or does something with the database? So now you protect the thing. And databases just don't support that branching preview/preview workflows. So we're changing that. At Neon, in Neon, you can always branch the database. So that becomes an enabler. But of course, we're prescribing developers that use Neon, and we're telling them how they go about building features and what the role of the database as they build features. So we introduce the notion of branching. We understand migrations. Like what I mean by that is schema migrations. And we'll let developers instantly create those sandbox environments with full protection, by the way. Like if there's PII data, you can mask the PII data and whatnot. But their local and staging environments are fully functional and have access to a clone of the production database. And you can create those environments very, very easily with an API call or a push of a button. So this is an example of zooming into the developer workflow and making sure that developers feel like this is built for them. It's like follows their day.
Of course, just to maybe touch a little bit on that, as you're thinking about building, especially a database company, there's so much pressure to have, really good performance, really good reliability. How do you kind of build the culture of the company, or maybe just advice for founders that are, serving the developer market? How do you keep developer experience as a first-class citizen, both in the culture of the company, the people that you hire, the customers that you bring on? And the reason why I ask is I think Neon's just done an incredible job of that.
So there are a couple of things, right? One is developer experience. The other one is reliability, uptime, performance. And the latter is incredibly important to a database company. And if you don't have them, you will never succeed. And the first one is the developer experience. That's your differentiation. Because you have it, you're succeeding. Because the latter, performance, reliability, uptime, it's a requirement, it's necessary, but it doesn't guarantee that you will be able to compete with Amazon because they have it, right? So let's be honest about it. RDS and Aurora are good, reliable services. So you can build a business on them. So you need both. So how do you get both? So reliability is a function of a few things. One is, do you have a robust architecture and a good team to develop on that architecture? Once you have that in place, it's a function of time, right? You won't be reliable day zero. And that's why we took more than a year to be in preview. And we started with being extremely open and transparent with ourselves and the world of where our reliability is by showing our status page and kind of feel a little naked when people see how reliable your system is. And for a database company, if you're not reliable, it attracts a good amount of criticism. And we got it. We got it, a good amount of that in the fall where the usage really went up. Like we had this hockey stick growth because we were onboarding, call it 100 databases a day in the beginning of 23. And, we started to push 3,000 a day by the end of 2023. And so all hell broke loose. But then if you set the priorities right, when, you write postmortems, you have a high quality team, you slow down your feature development when you need to in the name of reliability. And again, the architecture is key because if the architecture is off, you'll never get there. Then over time, you will get incrementally better and better and better, and eventually the reliability will be solved. So now that we're GA, we feel good about the past history of our reliabilities and the systems in place, but we can't with a straight face say we are 100% reliable. I don't think there is such thing when you run a service, but you can get incrementally better, and at some point you are you have enough history to take the calculated risk of calling yourselves GA. When it comes down to developer experience, I think there are a few things that are important to get right. One is, of course, is the team. Like Jiro dreams of sushi. You need to eat good food to make good food. So the tools that we use internally should be top notch. The tools that we praise out in the world should be top notch. We love GitHub. We love Vercel. We love Linear. We love super well crafted, razor sharp tools that get a lot of developer love. I'm going to call my competitor, which is like a big no-no, but I think Supabase is doing a great job in developer experience. And we're not shy about talking about this internally to level up and potentially exceed the developer experience that they provide. So I guess it's like emphasizing what's important, relentlessly invest in your team, having good architecture and understanding what good looks like and getting better every day.
You have a long history of also, working on SQL Server and single store and focusing on reliability and winning those upmarket accounts and workloads. When do you start thinking about when's the right time to start prioritizing that at Neon versus, focusing on kind of net new workloads, really good developer experience? Just curious how you're thinking about that trade-off.
So Heroku is an $800 million run rate business as of maybe 6 months ago or something like this, maybe a year ago. And half of this is Postgres. Half of that is, call it PLG Postgres, product-led growth, small teams coming into Heroku using Postgres. And the other half is enterprise. So you can make a lot of money on providing the best Postgres in the world for small teams. But you don't want to get stuck in the same place as, call it, DigitalOcean got stuck. By the way, like no shame in building a public company and it's still growing very healthily and all these things, just the stock does not reward DigitalOcean at this point in time, right? And then DigitalOcean didn't go up market. We want to go up market. We want to go up market, but we gate it. And we gate it as the signal that we're getting through our own users that are coming through the side door and just kind of signing up. We have a good number of enterprise customers, companies like EQT, companies like Zimmer Biomed. There's a fairly long list of small use cases inside large enterprise customers that will obviously keep expanding. But we don't want to spread too thin and over focus on that. So, for example, what does it mean specifically? We don't have a sales team. We don't have a sales team, and all our growth in like last months, we grew 25% months and months in revenue. It is all PLG, and so that's what focus is looking like. We do have a partnerships team, and the partnerships team helps us with strategic partners such as Vercel, Retool, Replit, and making sure we give them the best quality of service possible. And now we're also in the AWS marketplace, and then working with some strategic partners. Like that to us is a strategic priority today. Standing up a sales team is not a strategic priority today. And we have a very, very good, very thoughtful board that is completely aligned on us on that strategy. But there is a when, right? And so how do we gate it? We'll look at the signal of people coming in on the platform, converting, and what kind of teams those are. And we're also looking at the partner pool. And these are the things that will eventually tell us like, okay, now is the time. And the book that created a very good impression on me was Amp It Up by Slutman. And when he talked about data domain, they were in their like technology development, and then they've proven their go-to-market motion in the enterprise, because the data domain is obviously enterprise. And then they scaled their sales team very, very quickly. I want to live in the PLG world And my 200 million of Heroku is telling me that like there's plenty of dollars to be captured in this world, but track very closely of what's happening with larger customers, driven either them coming in directly to the platform or through partners. And once that's humming, I'm going to scale the sales team very, very quickly. And what I want to avoid is a prolonged process of having a sales team and then keep scratching my head is like how expensive that is, how effective this is. I think having a very tiny team early on, proving everything, but then scaling very, very quickly is the right way to go.
It's 2024 and everyone's talking about AI. I know we only touched about it a little bit. You mentioned you're, in two pretty unique roles. Not only are you CEO of a company like Neon that's raised $100 million, but you're also a venture partner at Khosla. I think you're uniquely able to weigh in. How big do you think this wave is going to be? Is it all hype or is it something that is here to last for a while?
So I'm a true believer. This will change the world. It will change the world of software development. It will change the world of living. The question how long this is going to take, and are we going to have a trove of disillusionment sometime in the future? I don't know the answer to this question, but like I'm as bullish on this thing as like I even think that we'll live in a much more beautiful place, as in like our planet, because AI will eventually drop the price of beauty down so much that it will just make sense to have it. And you know how like in the 70s we had all this like brutalism architecture, which is like super duper ugly. And I was born in Soviet Union and grew up in Russia, where Moscow is very pretty, but there's a lot of like cookie cutter houses that were again built mostly in the 60s and 70s. And the reason they're so ugly because they're cheap to make. I think we'll arrive into a place where the cost of building things, software, or even physical things with robots, and all those models will be in their robotic brains very soon, will allow us to live in a much more beautiful world. So the cost of design is going down, the cost of software engineering is going down, the cost of construction will go down. So we'll kind of re-terraform the planet through this.
Well, one of the things that every enterprise is figuring out is that every AI strategy requires a data strategy. I'm curious, how are you seeing this impact Neon, especially, focused on net new workloads and net new projects?
Well, I think we're potentially moving into OLTP being more important than analytics. And what I mean by that is we just went from, I don't know, zero cloud spend on analytics to like, I don't know, I think Microsoft is like 20 billion. It could be 10, it could be 20. You can cross check with
It's a lot.
Microsoft S1, but it's in the tens of billions on data and analytics. This is your big data. This is your data warehousing. This is your data lakes. This is your training models and stuff like that. And training like old school models, right? Just like ML and AI workflows of the past. We're going to have more apps. Apps need databases, operational databases. So I think that's not going to go away, that we're going to have more apps and therefore we're going to have more databases. Obviously, the whole inference thing does not belong to an operational database and does not really belong to an analytical database. It's like it's its own new thing. It will be triggered by both. So that's an additional kind of line of spend. And I don't know if I'm bullish. I like one day I'm really bullish on data warehouses, and some other days I'm thinking this is going to be older technology, because it feels like we're babying those data warehouses way too much. And I'm observing by looking at the data team at Neon where we're really obsessed about the semantic model and how clean the data is and how much it represents. The quality of the data is mega important because garbage in, garbage out. So if you want to have the data in your data warehouse reflect the state of your business, you have to be obsessed about it. And today, people are working on that. But I think tomorrow, that whole thing might be a lot more simplified, where AI can deal with data being a little dirty because it understands where it's dirty. So like we don't need to like make a picture perfect schema representing your business. I think the center of gravity might shift a little bit where people calling into AI, and I'm going to call out my friend and his tweet, Uncle Goel and Brain Trust Data, where he talked about what changes we're going to have for the data warehousing. He's obviously looking from his standpoint and evals, and he thinks evals will start pulling data into closer to the model and start replacing observability and start replacing maybe even some product analytics at the minimum, and then over time data warehousing there. I don't know, it feels archaic to collect data, run ETL jobs, and run a SQL report, but the alternative doesn't quite exist today, so it's still best in class. But that whole AI thing should some one way or another disrupt those things where the quality and the full history of that data will matter slightly less.
Totally. Like referencing Ankur's tweet is almost like a real-time learning system of how can the app update itself using AI versus doing it offline the human way, looking at the warehouse, looking how users are reacting, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. And the engine of crunching the historical data should still exist, right? I still want to know how my business is performing, right? I still want to analyze the clicks and the traffic and do the product analytics. But how tedious it is today to set all those things are, to set those, like how tedious it is, like that should somehow go away. And a self-learning kind of AI system that ingests the data kind of like a human brain, and that thing becomes the driver for running those aggregations. That may change the where the center of gravity is. And today it's firmly in the data warehouse or data lake. Right. That is where the centerpiece of the enterprise data today is. And of course we're like super eager to partner with all them because like, well, that's what the data is. Like you want to be close to that. Is it gonna stay there or not? I don't know.
Do you see there being tailwinds on the transactional side, or how do you see Neon fitting into some of these new modern AI architectures?
Well, look who's doing AI stuff today versus yesterday. So in the past, yesterday it's a data scientist. I don't know if we need that many data scientists anymore. Like look who's doing AI stuff today. It's app developers. And it's like prompt engineering, building RAGs, and all of that are real-time operational systems. Every app still needs a database. So we're not replacing operational systems. We are augmenting them. And the people who are driving AI value in the company are mostly product engineers running stuff in TypeScript. So another way to think about why there are tailwinds for transactional applications, I think it's agents. So the whole like Devin demo broke the internet, and we had an incredible amount of excitement about Devin and how Devin can like add print statements and debug your code and run full tasks. We're actually using Devin already at Neon. We gave Devin a task to convert our CLI tool from TypeScript to Go. It didn't complete it, but it made enough progress for us to see that maybe today it's not quite there, but it's almost as good as an intern. And then tomorrow it will, tomorrow it will just do the task. And there's so many tedious things that you want to do, like you see, look at the design and it's not picture perfect. Replace this button from red to gray. We just ran something like this today, and then a human had to do this. But those things, like they shouldn't be humans doing this kind of things.
Nikita, we just have a few minutes left. And so I'm going to ask a few rapid fire questions. First, what intelligent application are you most excited about and why?
Well, right now I'm mostly excited about Devin-like systems. I think in the whole AI world, we're replacing humans. We're not giving humans sharper tools. We're starting to replace humans. And software engineering is one of the most, like, it's an elite job. And then if we're able to replace a software engineer, obviously starting from a very junior one, but like over time, that's an incredible amount of economic value because most companies are bottlenecked on the amount of engineering that they can ship. So I think that's probably my high end excitement there, and we're certainly doing work internally on that front.
Okay, number two. Beyond AI, what trends, technical or non-technical, are you excited about and why?
Well, obviously, developer experience is very on brand for us. I think we're entering a world where there's just so much technology, and the way to stand out is just the incredible degree of craftsmanship that goes into creating a new product or a new tool. So I'm both excited about it. I'm in fierce competition with Supabase on that one. They get it too. We get it. And we will see. This is Jiro Dreams of Sushi kind of argument here again.
It's kind of interesting. On one hand, this isn't a question, but on one hand, you have AI that's potentially replacing the junior developers, but then you also have killer developer experience that's making like software engineering more accessible.
Correct, correct. By the way, if you make a human more if you make software engineering more accessible for humans, you're making that more accessible to agents as well.
All right, number three. What is an unexpected challenge you've had where something didn't go as expected, and how did you deal with it?
I think for us, that was the team was born as a systems project, and then the developer experience was layered on top. And we couldn't really move on anything developer experience until the foundation of that storage was built out. And because those things were not on the core DNA of the founding team, it took us a couple iterations to get there. And I would arguably we're not quite there yet, but we're like better and better and better until we see material progress. Something that for like a systems engineer may look like, oh, like of course that's like a lot easier than like do the hard stuff, like the storage thing. But that turned out to be quite hard to get. And I'm very appreciative for the skill sets and for the people who go and work on those things.
Any other parting advice for founders who are just starting the founder journey?
Well, there's so many things. I think the one that I would give is a don't wait. I waited on this idea. I should have started this earlier. So if you feel like you were ready and maybe you're not feel like quite ready but close enough, just go and do it. And then go into the lifelong journey of learning and being passionate about your users and the technology that goes into making delightful experience for those users, and never look back.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nikita. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.